Milwaukee has a story to tell. We work hard, we play hard, and we love our community. From our fresh coast to our vibrant downtown, we're excited to show the world what we offer when we welcome the Republican National Convention in 2024.
Our history runs deep. We're known for our breweries and our bikes, cheese, Cream City, brick, but there's a lot more.
Our people are what makes us. They're hardworking, they're tough and smart. Companies that call Milwaukee home are industry leaders on the cutting edge of innovation.
Our city is one of the best places in the country to work, live, play, and learn.
Milwaukee is a city waiting to be explored with world-class restaurants, some of the best sports teams around, and venues that are state-of-the-art. When you visit Milwaukee, we know you'll come back.
And in the summer of 2024, we're making history again.
Be part of our story. Join us at the Milwaukee 2024 Republican National Convention.
Well, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker today, an old friend to many of the people in this room, Reince Priebus, who is serving as chairman of the Milwaukee 2024 Host Committee, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization with a mission to work on behalf of the City of Milwaukee, its businesses, and residents to ensure that the 2024 Republican National Convention in Milwaukee will be a very successful event. Reince is a Wisconsin native. In addition to his role as chairman of the Host Committee, he currently serves as president of the law firm Michael Best and Friedrich and chief strategist and chairman of the board of advisors of Michael Best Strategies. Prior to joining Michael Best, Reince served as White House chief of staff, as many of you know. And prior to that, he was the longest serving chairman of the Republican National Committee. He also served as a very successful chairman of the Republican Party of Wisconsin and has long been involved in the Wisconsin political scene. In addition to his other endeavors, Reince currently serves as an officer in the U.S. Naval Reserve. He has been a visiting fellow at the Institute of Politics at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and he was twice named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. Today, Reince will provide us with an update on the 2024 convention, the Host Committee's role, and what we can all expect next summer. Let's all give a warm Rotary welcome to Reince Priebus.
Thank you, Jim, Madam President, and the Rotary. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm excited to be here. I'm most excited by the fact that Jim mentioned that I was the longest serving chair of the RNC, just so you could all know that I can keep a job for more than 6 months. So that's very helpful, as opposed to the first part of that introduction. Look, this is home. I'm from Kenosha. I love Kenosha. Love really about everything about it. The food, the people, the great upbringing that I think kids have. And it brings me to Milwaukee, where you have the same feeling that you all have from whatever town you're from, whatever village you're from, the city. There's just something about people from Wisconsin that makes everything feel good about being home. I still have a house in Kenosha. I spend most of my time in Washington, and now the city of Milwaukee, flying back and forth, working on this great opportunity that we've got here for our convention. Some of you wonder, well, how did this happen? Well, you've been through it once before. There's a reason why both national political parties picked the state of Wisconsin. And you all get why, right? This is the center of the universe. of politics, good or bad. Some bad, a lot good, but we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. When the RNC came to Milwaukee, they were also going to Pittsburgh, they were going to Salt Lake City, they were going to Nashville, they were going to a lot of cities around the country. And these cities and these visiting bureaus come in. And by the way, I think Peggy is about the best there is in the entire country. I've met them and seen them. And so they come into a place like Milwaukee, and you can imagine the dynamics are somewhat similar in dynamic, meaning almost every major city is run by a Democrat mayor, controlled by Democrat boards, Democrat county executives. So that dynamic is pretty static. But I will tell you, and I'm not here to certainly not campaign for Democrats, but I can tell you without any hesitation that the mayor, Mayor Johnson, the county executive Crowley, Chair Nicholson, President Perez, it was very, very special. Mayor Johnson was something of a force at the RNC in talking about this city, in talking about his passion for making sure that when an opportunity came to bring in $200 million in an economic impact to southeastern Wisconsin, mostly Milwaukee, he was going to be there. He was going to be there for the DNC. I know at the time a different mayor, but he was going to be there for the RNC. He'd be there for WrestleMania, for the All-Star Game. Whatever it is, it was very clear. You think about how wild this is. You're talking about political division. And I want to talk a little bit about that too in a second. But just keep that in the back of your mind. Joel Brennan's helping us. Sorry to out you like that, but you've been helpful. Thank you. John Hiller. That at a time when people are at each other's throats in a way that we haven't seen in really a long time. I mean, you go back 150 years, people shot each other. But this is a unique time. To have a city council vote 13-0 to open its doors to the Republican National Committee and the Republican National Convention is something that I think you should feel really great about. I feel proud about that. And I think that what you'll find is that the most partisan people that you could get together will want to make those people, county exec, the mayor, their boards, the people who voted, to make them proud. The fact that they took a chance on something that would be very easy to say no to. Look what they did in Nashville. If you recall, this decision was coming down to a few cities, including Nashville. Well, they weren't really playing ball. And that is something I think is very, very unique. This has the economic impact, like I said, of about $200 million coming into this area. Every hotel room will be booked from Madison to Kohler down to Kenosha. The buses, the logistics, the parking garages. When you plan a convention like this, it takes all of that to keep it all together and to come in unified. Republicans and Democrats is something that I think is very unique. We live in a time, unfortunately, where division is profit. Think about this for a minute. Only division makes money in the media. If you're dividing, you can make money. Unity is a loser. There's no ratings in unity. There's no ratings on TV when you've got two people on television talking about how they agree with each other. There's only money in division. There's sales in books and division. If you want to start a podcast and say something insane, and if you can find 400, 500,000 people to agree with your insanity, you can make money too. We live in a world where algorithms further divide us. Whatever you believe, you'll get pumped up 100 times on that algorithm. And whatever you believe, you'll be pumped up 100 times on that algorithm. And you'll look at each other and say, well, how come you don't agree with me? You got to be crazy not to agree with me. Because the only thing you're seeing is that 100 times on that algorithm for everything that you already believe in. We have a Congress that, while you believe that things are wild politically, you believe that things are pretty vitriolic politically, the safest job in America is to be elected to Congress. When you only have 5% of the 435 that are in play. I always get questions. I do events like this or corporate events, and there's always someone that says, well, can't they just work together? Well, if everyone is 95% safe and everyone lives in 95% safe districts, you're basically asking people to do things that their constituents don't agree with. If I was best friends with Brad Kalsher over here, and let's say we lived in San Diego, let's take ourselves out of Wisconsin. And let's say he's a Democrat and I'll stay a Republican for the hypothetical. We have a beer together every night. We're both in Congress. We live next door. We don't agree with each other a lot, but we really like each other. His district goes that way. It's 80% Hispanic, 80% Democrat. My district goes that way, 80% white, 80% Republican. He's talking about, well, what about the kids that are here through no fault of their own? And I'm talking about a double-wide electric fence on the border. Same media market, same newspaper, immediate neighbors. We got a better chance of getting reelected than waking up tomorrow. So my point in sharing all these depressing points is that when you have an opportunity to bring Republicans and Democrats together in a community to say, look what happens when two political parties come together for the good of the people of Milwaukee and Wisconsin, that should be celebrated, and I know it is. It's a great thing. It's going to be a great thing for the city of Milwaukee. It was an amazing thing for the city of Cleveland. I was the last chair to actually run two conventions that actually happened. Cleveland, and then 4 years earlier in Tampa. So I can take that in, what I've learned from that experience and help out here as a volunteer in Milwaukee. You may also know that Ted Kellner, who I'm sure you all know, he's the CEO of the host committee. He was the treasurer of the host committee for the DNC. My law firm, Michael Bess and Friedrich, Jose Olivieri was on the board and on the leadership board of the DNC event, and Michael Bess was also a major sponsor of the Democrat National Convention here that was going to be taking place in Milwaukee. Now, there's some heartburn over that experience. We spent some time working through that heartburn. A lot of it had to do with small businesses and people that were hoping that that work would come in and that contract would get signed. And for the most part, it didn't. But all indications are this is going to happen. And all indications are that things are going very, very well. The fundraising's going well. We're completely on target on our fundraising markers. we've developed an effort to spread that $200 million around the city of Milwaukee as best as we possibly can. We opened up, with Allison's help here, a portal for small businesses that some of you may even be part of, where we have over 1,200 small businesses that are part of a portal inside the Milwaukee Host Committee, so that when contracts get put out for bid, they're the first ones in line. And we've made a commitment to doing everything we can to make sure that the businesses here are here and they stay here in the state of Wisconsin wherever possible, whether it be a print shop, a flower shop, a subcontractor for some work that needs to get done. There's going to be an enormous opportunity that we're committed to making sure gets executed on. One thing that I think is important for you to understand about conventions, hopefully not too boring, but it's good on the logistics. Someone asked me earlier, how does this work on the timing? The first thing you have to do is you have to get sure your hotel's locked in, your bus is locked in, every parking garage you can find under contract, surface lots under contract, and then work on the logistics with the Secret Service, security, and making sure all of that spaghetti ends up working together to get 56 delegations, like I said, from Madison to Milwaukee down to Kenosha, bussed in and out, easily to events, good experience, positive feeling about Milwaukee. You don't want to get stuck, good food, in and out on entertainment, venues that are easy for folks to get to, so that at the end of the week, after you engage the community, after you go into small businesses, after you go into every nook and cranny of Milwaukee to make sure every nook and cranny has an equal opportunity, what do you want them to say at the end? Like, wow, I loved Milwaukee and I loved Wisconsin. Now, that's a political effect of putting on a great convention. We are a 501c3. We don't pay for things that have anything to do with political messaging out of the convention. The voices and the speeches coming out of people's mouths, we don't pay for that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a 501c3, right? That would be the part that the RNC itself, the committee, covers. There is great cooperation with our local and state and federal law enforcement. But all of these things are happening right now. But the part that really creates this economic engine for a convention is, think about those 56 delegations: Texas, California, Guam, Puerto Rico, Illinois. All of those delegations, they have their own little conventions that they're planning. When I was chairman of the state of Wisconsin GOP, I went to St. Paul for the convention. I had 4 full buses of people from Wisconsin that I had to entertain all week. We weren't just going to the arena and back to the hotel. Every day, I had a breakfast with our delegation, a room like this. Imagine all these people. This is our Wisconsin delegation. We have breakfast together. We'll go to a special place for lunch. Maybe it'll be the guest house. Maybe it'll be somewhere else. See here. But we're going to go to lunch. And then in the afternoon, we're going to go do some kind of activity, maybe on the lakefront. Then we'll go to the Fiserv Arena. Then we'll go to the bowling alley for after the party and have another event there. So you do that, and we have to make sure that all 56 delegations on a map are getting around this city so that we don't leave huge swaths of the city completely blank. So the logistics of this, from the big stuff, like just getting people on a bus from Kenosha to Milwaukee, to the little things like making sure that these 15 businesses over here on the northeast side or the southeast side have some action. Because when we leave, I'm not going to leave, but when everyone leaves, you want people to say what a great experience it is. And you can understand. The party folks don't want to put on a convention in a battleground state and have people leave and say, boy, those guys were a bunch of cheap jerks. No, you want them to say, they're the most generous, kindest, conscientious people that put on a convention, worked with city leadership, and did everything they could to make sure that the economic impact was spread around this city. My last thing, two things. One, volunteering. If you're willing to be a volunteer, it's about being an ambassador to Milwaukee in the state of Wisconsin. Don't be afraid. Democrats and Republicans, independents, people who don't even like politics, they'll all be part of this. And if you want to be a volunteer, go to MKE2024host.org. MKE2024host.org. Last comment, and then we'll do Q&A. When I left the White House, I'd been back many times since, which is a longer story. By the way, if we weren't rolling on cameras, I could have you guys on the floor laughing for hours. But when I left the first time, to give you a little hope, there was nothing like working in the White House. I mean, it was a little wild for me, but it was special, right? I mean, it doesn't matter who you're in there with. It's a special thing to go into that building every day into the West Wing. And I remember the last official day when I left. It was night, and it's a long story. And it's a good story, by the way. But when I left, I looked at the White House, and it was glowing, and it stood for all the things and still stands for the opportunity, hope, democracy, all the goodness that you think about when you see that White House. But that last day when I left, I thought about the fact that there was nothing on the outside that tells you what president and what party's on the inside. It's that same magical place that stands for freedom and democracy, no matter who's in charge, who's there. It stands beyond any party. And in many ways, in a smaller sense, it's really what we're trying to do here. And I think it brings an extra bonus that in tough political environments, that we have an opportunity in Wisconsin, like we know how to show the world that Republicans and Democrats can work together for good. And that's what we're doing here. So thank you so much for listening. God bless you.
If you have a question for Q&A, you can come up to the microphone here. And as a reminder, please keep your questions concise and topical.
So I'm Don Lee. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Don.
So we had, a bipartisan vote to prevent a government shutdown in Congress, followed by a bipartisan vote to oust the speaker, just to set the tone that bipartisanship is difficult, right? And you've talked about working with Democrats, and even more amazing is working with moderate Republicans. What is this? Is it important that people believe you when you say you want to be, this is bipartisanship, this is good for Wisconsin? Do people believe you? I believe you, but it's just so hard to believe this.
Well, I mean, it has to be. I mean, so to give you an example, when I was in Cleveland, I was obviously chair of the RNC. I had to work with Democrat mayor in Cleveland. When I was in Tampa, I had to work with a Democrat mayor in Tampa. It's something that, honestly, for conventions, it's something that we've got to do. Second thing is, believe it or not, the DNC and the RNC works together quite a bit. Because you think about it, they're equal footing, whether it become security money, whether it become the calendars, whether it be the finance, federal election campaign financing. So when we run these conventions, I've already talked to my counterpart in Chicago multiple times about things that we've got to do together. And they're very political too. I mean, in their work that they do outside of the convention, but as a matter of convention planning, it has to be that way. There's no way around it, and it should be. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't mean to be the skunk at the garden party, but
Sure, fire
Ted Kellner predicted the convention afterglow. We talked about this before, measured in tourism dollars for Milwaukee conventions. I'd like to know what your definition of afterglow might be, given the following. The historic cooperation between the mayor and the Republicans, as you referenced, a sense that blue cities are generally failing, not Milwaukee necessarily, and the following things that mark Milwaukee's reputation. Most segregated, failing public schools, revolving door in the criminal justice system, chronic poverty, and youth flight. So given the convention, what's your definition of afterglow?
Well, I mean, I can't solve all those problems by putting on a convention, but an afterglow to me is as I described it, which is having both the people in the city and county and the delegates and guests and hopefully some help from the media that reports fairly, that says these folks did everything that they promised. They worked around the clock and they delivered, and we loved having them, and vice versa. The people in Milwaukee promised this great convention. They told us how great people were. They told us how nice these folks were in Wisconsin, and they delivered. And I think having a long-lasting bond between 100,000, 150,000 people, the people watching from around the world, and the city of Milwaukee, to me, is what an afterglow is. As far as those other issues are concerned, school safety, I mean, we've got problems all over the country. It's not, just problems in Milwaukee. It's a lot of major cities around the country have got these issues, and people are hopefully dealing with them. What I can say about the mayor and the county executive is they have been nothing but hardworking, sincere, helpful, genuine, and honestly, I don't have to say that stuff. I can get out of this question easily, but I'm saying it because it's true. And that leadership, I think, is very special, and it's one of the reasons why Milwaukee won the convention again.
Thank you for your kind words. This is actually a question about the convention.
Yes.
So when do people actually start arriving in the city, and when do they start leaving?
Which one are you more interested in? Okay.
I don't mean that in a nasty way. I'm just curious, how long do we embrace these 57,000, 100 million people?
I would say that to keep in mind, the convention is actually starts on July 15th, but the welcoming party is July 14th, which is a Sunday. Most people that are truly, really engaging in the convention, which is, like I've always said, it's like 4 Super Bowls in a row. Those start coming in on Friday. Some will come in on Saturday. But I would say a good quarter of the delegates will come in a week earlier. So it'll be about 2 straight weeks of really noticeable, super heavy the one week, but you'll see big time operations at least 2 weeks prior. And a lot of the groups that come in that support the party's activities will come in the week ahead of time to do their member events, national conventions, or national whatever it is. They're going to come in early, knock that out, and then just stay where they're at in the hotels for the next week. So it'll be a couple solid weeks. Yes, sir.
So, especially in a nonpartisan way, how will a typical Milwaukee or Wisconsin resident, especially our youth, I know schools closed at that time of the year, but participate in, benefit from, or be inconvenienced by the convention?
Well, traffic will be it'll be an inconvenience. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. I mean, there's going to be a secured perimeter around the Fiserv and parts of the city that are impenetrable, that are truly, I mean, it's amazing, but you're going to be in a situation, if that's where you want to go, where unless you've got a hard pass, you're not going to get in. So, I mean, there'll be parts that are annoying, especially when there's so much Secret Service and presidential nominee movements, things like that. But as far as like the work and the help, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for young people to get involved. My first convention was 1992 in Houston. I was president of the College Republicans. I went down to Houston. I was a volunteer, but I had just a ball with other kids that were my age, and they had activities for us. We'll have activities. The RNC will have activities for young people that want to help out. The beauty is, as a 501c3, if you have students that are not really Republican but want to help, or hey, I don't like the nominee, it's still for the community, and it's a learning experience. So I would encourage them to go to that MKE 2024 host.org and get involved. If they are politically active kids and they want to help out the Republican Party, you should send them to the Republican Party of Wisconsin. Or I don't think the DNC is going to help, but they can go to Chicago, right down the road, and help the DNC out. And I'm sure the Democrat Party of Wisconsin will be helpful to the DNC in Chicago. I encourage the young college kids and high school kids to get involved in politics, whether it's Republican or Democrat. If you hate how people are acting and you don't like one party or the other, or people in one party, then get involved in it. I purposely go to colleges. I just spoke at University of Southern California with a group of Democrats. I did an event with James Carville at USC. That's not easy for me, right? Because I'm the Republican in the group. And you go to college campuses, it's not easy, right? But I do it because I want college kids to see a Republican and a Democrat having a debate that really like each other but don't agree with each other. So my encouragement is to try to get your sons, daughters, grandchildren involved. Because if we don't get reasonable and conscientious kids involved in the process, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Yes, sir.
Are you anticipating any protests, and how are you planning for them if you are?
Yeah, well, there'll be protests. There always will be. There'll be protests in Chicago. There'll be protests here. There were protests in Cleveland and protests in Tampa. But the federal agencies are so good at allowing for First Amendment protesters and rights to do that in places that are reasonable. The courts will help in, invariably what happens, someone will file lawsuits saying, wait a minute, we need to be like right next to the Fiserv. Like, well, you can't be. But so they'll work it all out, and they'll go to a spot that is appropriate, where it gives them visibility but not complete disruption. And I think I'm optimistic, obviously, but I had the same thing in Cleveland. People thought there was going to be, oh my gosh, it's going to be so unbelievable. It was one of the best conventions people ever remember. And so we'll have a plan for that. Federal government have a plan for that. Safety is number one. And I know that the mayor and county executive are fully committed to that. Hi.
Hello. So are there any planned accommodations for those who live, work, or like me, live and work downtown to mitigate the impact on daily life? And
might be a lot of free beer. I don't know.
Well, not without a pass, it sounds like.
I've never had that question, but she's our COO, but you may have had that question. Go ahead, Allison.
The RNC and the works hand in hand with the Secret Service and with the city. I'm going to put the chief of staff for the mayor, Nick Desiato, too, on the spot on that. and they will work that out for you. And I know they're very conscious, and Reince just spoke to that. They worry about the people that live and are affected by that, and we do as the host committee, and that is our job too. So if you have concerns, ask us, and then we will work with the RNC.
You might not have like a mansion in Lake Geneva waiting for you, but maybe something similar.
I wish.
I don't know.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
So you spoke extensively about the economic impact the convention will have on the city and the sentiments you hope that convention goers will walk away with about Milwaukee. But I was wondering if you could touch on what you hoped Milwaukeeans would actually walk away with from the actual convention beyond the economic impact.
Well, I want them to walk away with a great feeling about the week, about what the host committee and what the people of Milwaukee provided. That I want them to feel like that. I want I want them to have the feeling that this is something that was a once in a lifetime opportunity that was great for us, great for the city, and I'm happy with how these folks conducted themselves. A feeling of satisfaction from the people in Milwaukee that things said were delivered. And that's what I'm hoping. And it's safe and that it's a good time.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And if there are people in the room that do want to volunteer, you've told them to go to the
MKE 2024 host.org.
Can either you or Allison just elaborate on some of the opportunities specifically for volunteering that might interest people?
Either one, go ahead.
Reince lets me do the data, like,
yeah, well,
I get in the weeds too much. But we are, I think like Reince said, we are going to have a lot of roles. We're still determining them because it's dependent on what the Republican National Committee does. They control inside the building. We're going to have the opportunity for greeters, for people at the airport, the hotels. And I think like Reince said, and his experience in all the conventions, the way people are going to remember Milwaukee is how they are treated and greeted here in the city, and how people are nice to them and welcoming and helpful. And the volunteers that we are looking for the host committee, 7,000 to 8,000, 18,000 hours. That's what we're looking for their help to do. And the last plug I will make is for teenagers. We are a nonpartisan organization. And I think like Reince said, we've talked to the different schools, to Milwaukee schools. We know it's hard for kids to maybe get here, but we want them to help us because this is the best chance you get just to see what this looks like. Doesn't matter what party you're in. It matters that this is about the city. And whatever you do, you can add this to your resume if you're a high school student. You can say you volunteered for the host committee, and you can understand a little bit more about democracy in the process. And so there will be lots of roles. They'll be defined more. If you're interested, you can find me on our email and then come to our website and ask us because we would love your help.
This will be the last question.
Thank you, Aaron. Kind of following up on that question about volunteering, we're one of the 1,200 businesses that are on the portal and are available and accessible to the delegates as they come in. For the rest of us in the room that are businesses hoping to capitalize on this opportunity, what might we expect? When will people start contacting us, and how does that process unfold?
So we had, I don't know if you participated in that, the 300 or so small businesses we had. You were there? Is great. I mean, we had in the Baird Center, we had over 300 small businesses before the debate that we had at the Fiserv a month ago. We had 300 small businesses up there with hundreds and just tons of, I don't know how many, thousands, I don't know, but it was an amazing display. And here's why it's important. It's important because I go back to those 56 delegations. Remember me as the state chair of Wisconsin. I'm now in the Baird Center talking to you because I now have to figure out how I'm going to plan my week. And I need, what's your business? Okay, cafe. Okay, fine. I want to go there. Maybe you do, we contract with you to do some kind of morning, we say cafe. we want to do coffee at your place, and we want to figure out how we're going to get the right amount of food, coffee. Maybe we work with someone to cater something in. That introduction started already. However, to his question, I would say that if I'm the state chairman of Wisconsin or Tennessee or whatever, you're going to be looking at maybe February, March time frame when they start going, okay, now we know what hotel we're going to be in. Now I need to figure out what we're going to do around this city. And Allison will help in making sure that if you have questions, just go through that portal. Okay, and she says we're going to be doing a vendor guide too that will be sent to you so you know the timing of all of these expectations. All right, well, again, it's been great. You know, I'm happy to come one day and do the whole political craziness with you too. Like, I don't really mind. I mean, honestly, you could ask me anything. I don't get offended. It doesn't bother me. It'll be fine. So maybe next year we'll do the wild talk, okay? All right, we'll see you. Thank you.